late, but it doesn't matter.
Good evening. Welcome to your Ass Hurts News Network. Coming to you live from the tip top of Cock Tower Square with your host, Sergeant Friday. Sarge, how you doing?
Good, Sergeant. You don't have the voice for it, buddy.
No.
People have been missing you, though. That's the word on the streets. The YouTube streets is that people are asking, where's Cletus? Where's Cletus? I said, that motherfucker ain't even really named Cletus. Nobody knows his real I don't think he knows his real name anymore, I said.
I am the illegitimate bastard known as Cletus.
Cletus, the illegitimate bastard son of Sergeant Friday.
There you go.
He's probably going to fill out his next job application with the name Cletus. Cletus!
I might.
Oh, fuck. It's Cleatus. Cletus! There's an A in that motherfucker just because I said there is. I get birth.
Well, you named me, Pops. So
I named him. I spell it however the fuck I want. That's just fucking awesome, bro. Holy Christ. Yeah, so we got a lot of crazy shit happening. Apparently, I don't know for a fact, but I've heard the Idaho 4 motions were all declined by the judge. And in some small sense of the word, I do want to hold Ann Taylor to the. Is that her name, Taylor?
Yeah.
I want to hold her feet to the fire for that because, and same thing like with the Karen Reed case. It's all about simple stupid. You've got to keep things simple, stupid for people. And like there was a guy in the stream the other day acting like, where do I know law from? I probably know more law than the lawyer you're going to go hire to defend you when I sued you, you dumb fuck. Nonetheless, Cletus, the point is, I think that she let herself get caught up in the weeds with the DNA. Instead of ignoring the DNA altogether and just focusing on the PCA and the lies that were told to give the DNA life. That's what I would have said. I wouldn't argue with the DNA to testing. None of that at this point in the trial. When you get, and then everything from there need to be striped.
Well, and the things that I saw, like I don't really know what all motions it was. It seems like what I did see was just
everything.
A quick glimpse of motion to suppress. Like one of the first ones I saw was Apple data, and I'm like, why? So, I mean, why? What on what grounds? Right? Like I don't know what the fuck all the details were. So
because the affidavit of service wasn't there.
Okay, so that
is a legal argument. But what I'm saying is, all of those specific legal arguments should have been boiled down to one simple point. That the DNA's relevance is zero because everything that we can see places Brian Kohberger away from the house. And the police saw that and then lied about it.
Yeah.
And it was the name Brian Kohberger that then gave them this concept of putting together a story around their phone and video data to connect him. And there is no connection between Brian and that house ever. So the DNA is, we can't explain it, and nor can they. And that's why this needs to be struck down, because they never met the level of probable cause. It's one thing to find my DNA, for instance, blood on a railing. She could have said that.
Right.
Blood on a glove. But that doesn't mean that those items were placed there during the time of the crime. No different than the knife sheath itself and or any sample found on the sheath. Its time and placement and its relevancy to this crime is only as good as your ability to place the perpetrator there.
Right.
At that time. And you can't do that. You can't ever place Brian at that crime, ever connect him to the victims at all in any way. Therefore, the DNA itself led the police to lie about their probable cause. They interpreted what they wanted to interpret, and the facts of the matter are completely contrary to that, and they've admitted it in many hearings. That's how I would have addressed the judge. And so there's no sense in arguing all the minutia. That's why I want the case. Everything from there forward is now from the poisonous tree. I don't care if they use genealogy. I don't care if they quadrupled this. I don't care what they did. The application for his arrest was based on complete falsehoods, and they knew it when they submitted it.
Why is Mark and Betty saying R.I.P. golf inspector?
Yeah, golf inspector passed away, apparently.
Really? I did not know that.
Yeah, I haven't talked to her in a while, but I liked her. Her and I got along pretty well.
Yeah.
Used to be in the swimming pool and she'd ring me up. I'd be like, "What up, bitch?" Then I started calling her ass inspector because she said something one time on a stream that was like talking out your ass big time. So I nicknamed her ass inspector. She was like, "Okay, I'll take that one." She was real cool that way, you know. Yeah. So I liked her.
Yeah, no,
I don't particularly dislike anybody. Like, I have no emotional connection to any of these people. Golf a little bit, a cup, maybe you and Clue a little bit. Something happened. I might, I don't know, hold off cooking my steak for half an hour or something. I don't know.
Right.
I don't know anybody that well out here, right?
You would mourn the loss with an afternoon nap that you're going to take anyway. Is that what you're saying?
I might delay that nap. Yeah, I might toss and turn. It might take me 20 minutes to fall asleep instead of 10. I don't know. But yeah, it's tough, man. It's sad that she's gone. And I think really, even in the Karen Reed case, you have to keep it as simple for the judge, for the jury, for your own peace of mind. That, like I said this a long time ago. I've said it many times. One of my best skills is to take the complicated and make it simple. Right? So an automatic transmission it's just a series of shafts and gears connected to brake systems. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Brakes, that's it. It works just like your fucking brakes and your drum brakes, your caliper. It works on the same principle. Something has to come to a stop for something to have to go fast. And then that has to be brought to a stop for something else to go fast. You follow me?
Mm-hmm.
And so, when you're shifting gears, what's happening is clutches are releasing and they're applying. It's not that complicated. I mean, but anyway, when it comes to even the Sebastian case or any case, the simple answer is the thing that's most likely to be. There's really very few options in that. He walked away. Well, that's unlikely now. Something happened in the home. That's possible, highly probable, or somehow a third party came and picked him up, which, of all of these three options, only one of them makes sense. And there's no evidence to prove it, but I think that's one of the main reasons so many people started going after the mother, because it's hard to explain somebody just vanishing like that.
Well, but what I always thought was odd, right? And I've had this conversation several times. One of the things that absolutely blows me away with people is I can understand people's outrage, right? I can understand people getting emotionally invested in something, especially a missing the kid's case. I can even understand how they can lose their entire fucking mind and start being an absolute fucking idiot on the internet over it. But what I've never understood is how they always went after the person that they personally disliked the least based on what they had seen of them. And I'm like, that's the craziest shit in the world to me. You're not even looking at the logic of the case. You're not looking at the facts of the case. You're looking at Chris Proudfoot because you think he's an asshole. Well, what the fuck does that matter? You're looking at Seth because you think he's a pedophile. Well, what the fuck does that matter? And it's like, I don't know. That's the thing.
Hold that thought for 1 second.
Okay.
Just so people know, we did a moment of silence in here for a golf inspector the other night. I believe it was last night when I found out. So just for people that should not even have time for grace. I don't know what your point is there, Pete Steph. But anyway, we did do that. It was absolutely more than a full minute of silence on my behalf and even in the chat room. So I'm sorry, Cletus, go back to where you were.
No, you're good. It amazes me how an entire community that calls itself true crime, I see very, very little of. I see a very, very small group within that community that's actually focused on trying to figure out or even fairly evaluate the situation, right?
Right.
And it's just wild to me.
Well, and then, again, true crime focuses too much on who's innocent or guilty. And I think the problem has infected so many different people, and it's not come down to the truth. Justice has been perverted to the point of what you can accomplish as a prosecutor or a judicial or a judge. My understanding of a judicial system in the United States is that judge is there to make sure the constitutional limitations of government are not exceeded by the accuser or the prosecution, who is the government. That's the main role of a judge. And yet, very few judges practice that. Koberger's case is a fantastic example. And unfortunately, I really think Anne overcomplicated her arguments. I think her argument should have been the smallest argument of all. They had no probable cause to charge my client. And what they used to produce probable cause was a complete lie that they knew of when they wrote it. And then just let burn the fucking system down, because that's what happened. It's not like she'd be lying to nobody.
So now that the motions to suppress have been dismissed or denied, I mean, where are we at? Are we ready? Are we at?
Well, they got to go to trial.
So we are at the point finally of trial.
It seems like it would have thought. I honestly suspected, but here's where I knew we were in trouble. Is when Judge Hippler started talking about the Fourth Amendment as it applied to the DNA sample on the sheath. For some reason, he went along with the prosecution's ignorant fucking idea that Ann was arguing the DNA on the sheath had Fourth Amendment rights. And she never fucking said that. I don't know where these stupid fucking lawyers came up with this concept, but that wasn't her argument.
Yeah.
Okay. And Judge Hippler's the one that threw that argument in her face. And it was at the moment where she paused, she stalled. She didn't know how to. She was so caught off guard by that perspective the judge was feeding her that she didn't know how to respond, because who the fuck could think that if you found DNA in a crime scene that it was protected by the owner's Fourth Amendment right? You got to be a fucking retard, right?
Yeah.
How the fuck the judge could make a statement like that is beyond my comprehension. And even worse, that's the argument that the fucking prosecution was claiming Ann was making. I couldn't believe it.
Yeah.
And that's why all of this shit hit the fan and fell down, because Hippler himself, is no brighter than the crack clause. And the way the system works is they don't got to prove you guilty. You got to prove yourself innocent. That's what the system has turned into. And Americans don't even fucking, for the most part, many people in the Koberger case, not so much, but many more of them, the guilters and the innocent arguers, it's got nothing to do with either one of those points. It's got everything to do with the process. And our process, look as an example. You want to talk politics? Trump is doing what he has under Article 2 powers as the president of the United States with these agencies that are all executive branch agencies. Ain't no founding father told you that there was going to be an EPA. None. They never, right? It's not the founding fucking institution. It's a executive branch institute. So is the Department of Justice, for that matter. So is the FBI. He could close those agencies right the fuck down. There's nothing you could do about it.
Yeah.
Okay. So, but look at all these left-wing judges and all these people and all these Democrats bringing him to court, trying to get the courts to stop him. And some courts, the ignorant motherfuckers that they are going along with it. Other courts are like, nah, we ain't touching that, because the judicial system cannot regulate the executive system, nor can the executive branch regulate the judicial system. There's a separation of powers there. And so, you see America here, you see us watching all these people in true crime and even people in politics that aren't paying attention to what the whole point of these things are. Your officials have to behave in a very specific way and follow very specific limitations. I've been watching, and I'll tell you who my favorite true crime person is now of all time. I think I'm going to change my name.
Who?
It's Ironside.
I don't know.
He was a dick. He makes me look like a fucking mild dick. He's a huge dick, this guy. Love him, okay? Talk about being a dick consistently with everybody, friend and foe. He's the fucking champion. Fucking crippled in a wheelchair, for fuck's sakes. Hell yeah. I suggest everybody go stream fucking Ironside. Because that guy he's a universal dick 24/7. And to be very honest with you, I think that's the only way to live. But my point is, the processes under which the system works has got nothing to do with justice. We've let these people pervert this thing and this become a tool to wield against your political enemy, okay? Or a tool to protect either drug cartels or institutions connected to the cartels or the sex traffickers or whatever the crime, the big level crime is, it'll protect them from being brought into an institutional case. Like, it's just almost impossible not to think that based on the findings that we now know, with 3 unknown male DNAs, 2 of them being blood, 2 of them being relevant to the crime scene, that shows you it wasn't an individual that committed this crime. Fair enough.
No, that's fair.
And the fact that we're being told, my understanding is Bethany's argument is that she saw somebody running away either nude or in shorts. That would make the glove up behind the sliding glass door highly relevant to somebody removing their clothes to escape and dropping the glove and not knowing it. You follow me?
Yeah.
That makes more sense than somebody walking into a house with a K-bar, sheathed, right? And then going upstairs and unsheathing it and killing people. That just doesn't make any sense to me. That's almost like saying, well, I don't know, fucking rock floats. I don't know.
I'll say this, right? So you're talking about, keeping it simple, and especially in the Idaho situation, right? Everything you just explained is reasonable, and we understand it pretty much instantly, but we've also followed the case since the beginning. And I'm going to get into what the point behind all this, but I was having a discussion last night about the system and about the job of the fucking attorneys is essentially sales. They've got to sell 12 people on their fucking version of events or their stance, right? And the keeping it simple, I agree. I think that's really fucking important. But in the Idaho situation, I don't know how feasible that really is to try and explain all of this in the simplest version possible while combating the bullshit that's going to get thrown at these people. Because like that judge you're talking about, let's assume he's not corrupt. The fact that he could understand what the prosecution was saying the defense's argument was better than what he could understand what the defense's actual argument was tells me that is a huge fucking risk, right? Because if it's not a simple issue, then there's room for misunderstanding.
Let me just say this, though. I think we need to come up with a new word. The word corrupt needs to be removed. Its implications denote intentional acts.
Well,
and this is what I tried to share for many months with people. The system, okay, when Black Lives Matter told you that it's an institutional corruption, they were right. I don't care how much you might disagree with what they did and all their tactics. I'll get on board with that. But it's an institutional issue, like that jerk-off cop that I asked a question to about a partner making a mistake on a big investigation. What would you do? Well, I'd have to see how big it is. No, you jerk off. You're supposed to write it down and record it and report it. And that's the problem with our system. The corruption is not individual people plotting with gangs or drugs or sex trade, or that isn't the corruption.
But the word doesn't need to be changed. People need to embrace.
No, we need a new term. We need a new term, because the defining term of corruption means somebody did an intentional corrupt criminal act. That's what people interpret it to be. That's why that jerk off cop runs around saying I hate all cops. And I don't. The word corruption is that kind of a statement, that they're all corrupt. And I think the corruption isn't in an intentional act to frame Kohlberger. The corruption is that this is how the system trained them to work. Do you understand?
No,
this way, the cops on the beat don't have to have a direct connection to the criminals the guys up top are fucking kissing, sucking ass with, if in case that's actually happening. You follow me?
Yeah.
So if the governor or the mayor and the chief of police and all the guy are, if they're sucking the ass of a crime cartel, how convenient for them to have a police department that only investigates in the directions that they're told, only do the things that they're ordered to do, and just do it without question. That's the corruption, right? And it's not the beat officer that's the problem. I mean, for this guy Payne to get on the stand and say, well, that my PCA is based on a whole bunch of different officers, then why didn't they all sign their part? What kind of a system do we live in where all you could forget the name or forget who gave you that part of this thing? That's not justice.
Well, and that goes right in with what I was going to say, that I had this discussion last night with Truth about the jury and the sales pitch that is the job of the attorneys, because while I can understand some aspect of it needing or it being required to be a sales pitch in terms of you've got to present the facts that you have that support your argument, it's I feel like it's a situation of playing on the emotions, the emotional triggers of the jury, more so than just playing on the facts, right? And the discussion was about, well, you can't that just is what it is. There's nothing you can do about that. And that's where I'm kind of fucked up, because I'm like, you can never have justice if you're seeking justice based on emotion. You're going to have an emotional fucking response to an emotional fucking trigger. And that does not bring justice. That brings a conviction or a not guilty verdict, but it doesn't bring justice because the facts are overlooked because of emotion. And I don't, that's where, when I'm talking about corruption right now in this context, that's what I'm saying is it's more of a mindset of misguidedness or refusal to truly understand how simple the fucking process is and where the fundamental flaw lies.
Well, here's another thing too, like in because the system is set up that way, like in the Karen Reed case, the police may not have rigged that taillight. They may have found the taillight in front of that house. We don't know. Right. But the catch-22 now it just dawned on me is, why didn't the defense reverse the video that the cop admitted was reversed? In other words, it avoided showing the passenger side taillight by doing what they did. It hid it. And it hid their relation to it, their distance from it, their congregation around it was not, it was made to look like where they were all standing was on the driver's side and the broken taillight was on the passenger side. But the original version would have put them all back behind the fucking passenger taillight, you see? So why didn't the defense play that video? Why didn't they correct it?
Yeah.
Right? I also am going to go back. If anybody knows where that video is, Heather usually has these things. I'd like to see the video of that car pulling into the garage again, because I'd like to see which side of that vehicle is blaring white light. Because a huge hunk of that tail light was missing, Cletus. That just emits white light. You get tickets for having white light in the back of your car, right?
Yeah.
So I'd like to see that video, even reversed, to see if when the brakes are applied by the person that drives it into the building, if the back corner lights up on the far side very bright. That would indicate that light was broke before he pulled it into the garage. Right? Maybe that's why they didn't want to show it. But it would seem to me that if that was the case, the cops would have showed it that way. So I don't know. It's a fucking mess. We live in such a trying time because the system itself works the way it's supposed to. The corruption has been endemic. Like you see that with all these agencies Trump is trying to cut. You're spending hundreds of billions of dollars on our money on fucking bullshit that we know are getting kickbacks. And why don't the fucking the politicians want him to get access to the IRS? Because that would then reveal the fucking tax filings of the corrupt people that are in there.
Right.
Yeah. You're going to tell me, Nancy Pelosi, or you're going to tell me, Adam Schiff, you only made $220,000 in 2021, yet you're worth $20 million? Can someone explain that? So, the system is so endemically corrupt, systematically corrupt, from the police to the politicians, even your school board. They think it's their right to tell you what to do with your kid. The respect of that being a child that belongs to you two is not even on their radar anymore. That's their kid, not yours. That's the state's child, not Cletus's and Clues. And we, for whatever reason, don't really get into the fucking minutia of that and try to weed that out.
Yeah.
I think we're afraid of work.
Well, and that is it that we're afraid of it, or that we've forgotten what the fuck it is, right? Because that's what I keep thinking about. This discussion I had last night has had me fucking thinking ever since, because it's like, I can sit here and see and can consciously say that I would not be a good juror in the world today, because I perceive a situation where I'm going to be the asshole that, when all of you fucking just succumb to the pressure of, Well, yeah, they did it. I believe they did it. I'm going to be the asshole that goes, you didn't fucking prove it to me. I'm not going to convict them. Right. And it's
Right.
like, but everybody should be that asshole. But I
Somehow
don't see that we do that, you know?
people have been desensitized, and they think that as long as there's a consensus of what's being like global warming, there's a consensus. The only consensus on global warming are the fucking people you're funneling all that money to. People that have a real honest evaluation of what's happening to the climate will not agree with that. So your consensus is limited to the fucking people you bought and paid for. And a consensus in the jury is the same way, right? Yeah. Because who wants to be the odd man out? We've all been trained to be in groups. Look at how they've grouped us politically. They used to do it religiously. Now they've done it politically and philosophically. Like a man can have a baby. Dude, I'll slap you so fucking hard, you're well, you probably won't reproduce. So I'll slap you so hard and then go slap your mother so hard that her great.
Well, and what you just said is why I don't have a problem with the word corruption being exactly what it is. Even though we may not consciously be aware, we were trained to do that. The intent to train us to do that was there for a fucking malicious reason. So therefore, the corruption that exists in all of us because we were trained that way is still corruption. It's involuntary, but it's there, right? Because it was put.
It goes right back to being trained, and you're going 65 and a 30 because you're the cop and I'm not. Yeah, that's where it all starts, right? It starts right there, and there's nobody from the top instituting policies and programs that'll hold the cops to a punishment for that. So nobody says nothing. And that's where it starts. It starts with the very small things that don't seem that significant, because everybody speeds. But if you're going to enforce the speed limit, then you, as a speed limit enforcer, must not ever speed or be seen to speed, right? Go do it on a dirt road where nobody can identify you. Fine. But don't do it in the patrol car that you're going to pull me over with and write a ticket, you dumb fuck. And it's Americans that are supposed to be holding the policemen to account. We, the people, are supposed to hold those police to an account. Right?
Yeah.
And so, maybe we ought to set up our own fucking cameras with speed traps and ignore all the fucking people that drove by our speed trap and only send the fucking pictures of the cops to the fucking media. No, I'm serious, bro. I mean, fuck them. One of us needs to, win the lottery and start arguing for truth and honesty. It's just not that hard to do. And, Bill Thompson, if he's got to know. That guy Payne, what videos do you have in all your 68 terabytes that show Brian Kohlberger in his car? Well, none. What do you mean none? Motherfucker, you told the court that you had it.
I can envision someday there's going to be a major news story where a guy is chasing down a cop that's speeding. And when the cop pulls him over, they have to get the jaws of life out to tear open his welded shut doors because he's sitting there going, "Fuck you, I got you," and it's going to be Sarge. You're going to be that cop.
Dude, I've already pulled up on. I've already done that to 2 policemen here in my district.
Yeah, but I know, and that's why I made that reference. But the only thing I added was that you'll weld your fucking doors shut just to make it that much harder on them.
Yeah. I'll get the doors off of the fucking presidential limousine that got 8-inch thick fucking doors and 5-inch thick glass. And I'll sit on the other side with a shit-eating grin on my face. Drinking fucking grape soda. Fuck 'em.
Oh fuck. And they'll be like,
it's a tragedy. And then you can't even get the majority of people online to even try to consider the truth of the situation.
Yeah.
Right. And that's all you really want to talk about. Instead, what we do is we make fun of, we poke fun, we attack. And I'm guilty of this too. So don't anybody think I'm ever just like I'm above it all, because I'm not.
No, I mean we all do it, right? And that's the emotional side of us coming the fuck out. But I think what's important is at some point you take a step back from the emotional side and you do evaluate the facts as they are. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. It's we live in such a fucking fucked up time that the tools and the capacity to make things right exist, and yet we all think we're going to elect somebody to fix it all. I mean, it's terrifying to me that Trump has signed hundreds of executive orders. I'll tell you why it's terrifying. Not because what he's doing is wrong or not because what he's doing is not required. It's because those can be eliminated by the next sitting president. Those need to be codified in law by getting bills through the Congress. That's how this is supposed to work. It's not supposed to be the Congress does fucking nothing and the president does everything, and then the next guy gets elected and he wipes out what the last guy did.
Yeah.
That's just, and Americans need to look at that. Americans need to be aware of that, and they need to be arguing for that. That should be the topic on Twitter, not these other bullshit fucking, this guy's a criminal, this guy's a criminal. They're all criminals. Who gives a fuck about the next one? It's what he wrote in an executive order, like I had said before. Take all lands that are federally owned where oil reserves exist and return them to the fucking state. Fuck this federal regulation over who can drill and who can't drill. You stupid motherfuckers. Make that law, and then a president can't write executive orders stopping it. You see?
Right. Yeah.
The same thing with the border and putting a fucking fence and a border patrol. Make that a law if you need to. I think there are laws now, but make it so you cannot ignore the law.
Right.
You got to create bills, and you've got to codify these actions in law, or what's the point? I mean, we live on a seesaw. And here's the fucked up thing, Americans. You're so fucking lonely in the world that you got to get on one side of the seesaw and everybody's got to jump off and run to the other side to get it to work. Because I promise you, and you already know, that no matter what happens here, ain't nobody sending you ship fucking loads of food. Ain't no paratrooping in to get you fucking water. You're in this fucking battle alone. And you can't even look at a legal case and observe what the accusing people are accusing the guy of and what their evidence is. You can't even unify on just looking at that. You got to argue over whether they did it or not. It's like the Sebastian case. Look at the available information. You come to surmise whatever conclusion you want, but don't go start destroying the people.
Well, and it's so funny with that case, right? And again, I'm gonna revert back to that conversation we was having in Truth last night. There's a lot of people in there with on both sides of the fence and some right down the middle, right? And what I see on both sides of the fence, anybody that's not right down the middle, their opinions are formed based on belief of statements of people that are, for all intents and purposes, potential suspects. But because that person said it and it triggered them emotionally enough to get behind them, they immediately consume that as a fact and build upon that from then on. And it's like, at what point do we step back and go, anybody could be fucking lying? And if we're not gonna look at that and say, can we prove it, or are we just believing what they said? Then how the fuck are we taking part in an actual true crime community? Because we're not evaluating anything except our belief of, well, this person's being honest or they're not. And that's crazy.
I wanted to give a shout out to X, the viewers on X. And the title tonight is Not a Damn Thing, because that's the point. There's not a damn thing that we do as a collective that actually, except for the last election. But other than that, there's really not a damn thing people do. But God forbid if some fucking little faggot shows up in a fucking beer commercial, you guys want to destroy the oldest brewery in the country. But you can't do that to the fucking officials in the country that are taking your money and throwing it out the fucking window and getting kickbacks that are being hidden that you don't know about. I wish they would audit the fucking Fort Knox. I want to see the gold, don't you? Show me the gold, motherfucker.
Yeah.
Fuck Elon, you got all that clearance. Fuck the Treasury and the IRS. Hold them accountable only after you go to the fucking, and then find out where's the gold? Where? And yet, Americans need to be clamoring for that. Instead, they get caught up in these, like I attack people on X constantly for fucking posting videos of these little fucking leftist fucking bald-headed bitches saying they ain't gonna fuck nobody. They're lying bitches. You'll fuck a turd. You're fucking desperate and ugly. And that stuff gets flashed across your screen constantly. And they bring up Joy Behar, and they bring up Whoopi Goldberg. I don't want to hear about any of them motherfuckers.
But
I want to hear what we're gonna do to make things right.
Don't you dare suggest somebody just go ahead and cut their dick off, because that'll be
you'll be booted from the platform. I was suggesting violence. I don't know. Is that violence? I wasn't suggesting to do anything. I wasn't going to do it. I said you need to go get your dick cut off, but I didn't say come here and I'll do it. Fuck that, right? My hedge clippers in the garage. The garage is covered. We got a lot of snow up here, by the way, but my garage is inaccessible for the short term. And yeah, so I don't know. The whole world is fucked up. But that guy should go cut his cock off. I don't know what else to tell somebody that's as stupid as that motherfucker. You know, how about people that are addressing Congress and trying to argue that men can get pregnant? But see, here's what happens. We focus on that lily bullshit. That's like that Kirk guy, Charlie Kirk. And it's a bunch of these other guys like Ben Shapiro, these big-brained motherfuckers. They never lead people to a solution.
Well, let's focus on something that is productive and maybe educational for at least.
All right.
So,
all right, lead the way.
Huh?
Lead the way.
So you were talking about, Trump and all of his executive orders make you nervous, and why? And I get that, right? But my question is this. So you said all of these departments are part of the executive branch.
Right.
But they become a staple in what we perceive as the government. So my question would be this, right? If they become a staple and they're so fucking necessary, how would we ever go about codifying something to where they can't be removed?
Well, that's the brilliance of the Constitution. You can vote with a plurality of the states to add something to this Constitution. But if you can't get it in the founding documents, okay, then to add to them, you need a plurality, a majority of the states. I think it's 2/3 of the states have to ratify. Right. But here's the thing: do you really want to make the EPA permanently a part of the government that can never be held to account?
Well, no. What I was more getting at is, there will be a lot of people that would be afraid of Trump having the authority to do that, because it's probably something that hasn't been done on the scale. And honestly, the first time there's ever been a real fucking risk of him being like, all right, cutting your
Kennedy started doing it. This goes all the way back with Kennedy doing it too.
All right,
so this is not a unique executive order, and in the actions that he's laying out, and the fact that he's got Elon and others there. This is not the first time that he's done this, or that agencies have been fired in mass. It's not the first time. Well, what's happened is they replace these people with people that will follow their fucking atheist, fucking bullshit lifestyles. You know what I'm saying? So when you can go in and you can fire all the lawyers of the DOJ because they're too closely sticking to the constitutional limits, and you get people in there that'll waver. They believe the Constitution's a growing document.
So let me ask you this: if the president has the executive power to go in and do what they're doing, why do we have to have congressional hearings to accept cabinet appointees?
That isn't. Yeah, see, people have come to the idea that without that you can't appoint somebody. And here's the truth: the reason all of these appointments, they may have been stalled, but the reason they were appointed this time rather than what he went through the first time is because that advise and consent isn't written in the Constitution.
Gotcha.
That is essentially a customary thing that we've been doing, but there's no law that can prevent them from hiring you as the FBI director.
Gotcha.
Because they're all executive branch positions. Secretary of State, Department of Justice, DOD, Department of Defense, Pentagon, the Army. All of these positions are appointed by the executive because he's in control of them. So yes, you do go through this policy of advise. It's called advise and consent. In other words, they'll agree with it. But if they don't agree, you could still appoint the person. That would be brought to court, but it would be worth the court battle to teach these fucking jerk off politicians. But what they did is they acquiesced to Trump, just so you know. He got his appointments in every single one. He didn't lose a single one. And that's because he was willing to take these people to court and say advise and consent doesn't mean you get to pick my fucking employee, which is true. You see?
Yeah.
But the message hasn't been given to the public. And that's why it would have been nice if they would have fucking said, no Robert Kennedy. And then Trump could have taken him, could have appointed him anyway, and they could have dragged him to court.
Yeah.
So the advise and consent is not a constitutional power by the Senate. Okay. It's something that started to be done decades and decades ago. and it's become a customary thing. But Americans don't really know how that's the other thing too. When I was doing politics full time, when I started in 15, the biggest push I was trying to get people to see was you need to know how the system works, or you really have no business discussing the system. Right?
Yeah.
I mean, what you scream is corruption may in fact not be corruption at all. It may be simply that the system is set up in such a way that the person needs to go through these fucking processes. And
Right.
as corrupt as it may look, or as much as usually it's you disagree with it, that's why it's corrupt. Like I do disagree with the PCA. I always did. I didn't come to that. I came into true crime only because of that. Because if somebody, go ahead.
I think what I've discovered in true crime that just in the system in general that I have the biggest fucking issue with isn't a PCA as much as it is a grand jury indictment, because I don't understand how you can basically remove somebody of their rights with only one side of a situation being presented. I don't understand.
Well, let me just say, like I said with my fingerprint, that's not true. And this is why I can't believe Ann didn't squash the indictment. You have to put both sides of the story to the jury. See, a grand jury is designed, folks, to come up to a decision as if they were at a trial, and this is the information they were given. That includes not just what shows you to be guilty, but things they found that may point to you not being guilty. A prosecutor must supply both sides. And in this case, and this is just so people know, this is the main reason why the discovery was a jerk-off toy for Bill Thompson, because she couldn't really wholeheartedly appeal the entire case that was indicted because she didn't have all of the fucking data that she needed to make that argument. She had some of it. She had a good amount of it. But knowing what they know now, if I were her, I'd go back to I'd see if I could get back into court again with it. I don't think she can even go back and apply, but there's got to be some relief when you finally realize what the police did here. Mm-hmm. I can't imagine. I can't imagine being Brian Kohlberger in that cell. I just can't imagine being that guy. Now, you know, people are going to conclude that the judge dismissing all of these submissions, or request to whatever you call that word, suppress. That's it. Thanks. Means that Kohlberger's guilty. But I think that plays more on the presentation of the attorney, because these facts needed to be broke down into the simplest form possible. And that needed to be your comeback over and over again. I mean, McDonald's is successful because you hear their fucking name constantly. If you didn't hear their name constantly, you'd be like, oh, look, there's a new restaurant, right? I mean, right. Every generation has to be bathed in that name. And that's the key to a good, if you're going to be a salesman and you're trying to sell innocence, you got to keep repeating it.
No, that's fair.
Brian might now drop all of his lawyers to delay it again. I honestly don't. Ann is good. Don't get me wrong, folks. Ann is good because she did see the deficiencies and all of that, but her handling of it, I don't know that was it is what it is. We'll see. I think he'll go to, obviously he's going to go to trial now.
Well, and I mean, that's my thing with that case specifically, right? And back to your original point of keeping it simple, I just don't see any way that it's possible to really simplify the problems with the prosecution in this case, right? The facts are there, but they're not. It's not just the most simple thing to explain, right? And I want, it's one of those things where it's like you would have to be a fucking genius to craft that PCA in the way that it was crafted to purposely fucking make it difficult to defend.
Well, they did that for the murder of the chiropractor. The same thing.
Yeah. Well,
no. So what I'm saying is it's the PCA doesn't mean anything because the judge that received it didn't think it through and didn't even want to think it through and just signed off on the fucking thing.
Right.
Right. The grand jury was given all that they were given and had to make a decision. And based on what they were given, their decision was to indict him. But that's where the system is broken. It's within that processes that before you even get to a grand jury.
Yeah. Well, and I mean that's where I'm at with it, right? Is I don't know if he's innocent or guilty. I don't believe that they did their job properly, but I don't think at a trial it's going to fucking matter. I think he's going to 100% be convicted because I don't have faith in people's ability to decipher the information given to them properly in order to see the fucking issues that exist.
And I
You know
said
what I
this
mean?
in the very beginning that being convicted on transfer DNA is what this is. This is what the government wants.
Yeah.
Here's the problem is they then craft a story that there is truth in the story. He was out driving that night, Cletus. He admits to that, right?
Yeah.
But so when you say that my analysis after talking to cast people on a telephone, apparently that fucking gave that jerk off the expertise to locate Koberger. But in fact, what Ann just countered with was when you see the handoffs from cell tower to cell tower, you know where the phone is going and where it's been. And it was never near the house, ever.
Well, and
so let me just say, it's not possible for the cop not to have known that himself.
Yeah.
And he left a wide interpretation the way he wrote it. Suspect vehicle, blah, blah, blah.
Well, and Joanne said this will be Delphi 2.0 and Karen Reed 2.0. And I don't know everything about either one of those cases, but what I perceive the big difference between those two and this one is in those two, there are a lot of reasonable possibilities along with problems with the case and with the process they went through. Whereas in Koberger's situation, there's not a lot of reasonable possibilities that the public truly fucking accepts. Like if, when you go to push on, look, Dylan and Bethany were the two fucking people that were there. And quite honestly, it's pretty clear they weren't fairly evaluated as possible suspects in this situation. Right. Nobody responds to that in the right fucking way. They take it as victim shaming. And that's just that's the natural fucking response you see across the majority of people. And you have to apply that same response and majority to what you would experience in a jury pool, because the people that are responding online could essentially be the fucking jury pool. And it's like, I don't see a strong enough alternative to really align this case with Delphi and Karen Reed. I think this is a situation where once they convict him, that's the end of it. There won't be a bunch of fucking hoopla about, well, they didn't do this and they didn't do that, because at the end of the day, it's been going for 2 years and everything they did wrong has been pointed out. But the vast majority of people either don't want to fucking hear it, or they're too busy coming off with bullshit of, I see fucking pixelation where people were removed from the reflections in the sound bites.
She can win this case if she does two important things. The first is her opening statement to the jury must be an evisceration of the law enforcement agencies that were involved in collecting the evidence that they're using against my client. That evidence always showed my client was never near that home and never had any contact or connection with the victims. And in addition, all of this is proven by the police themselves. When they ripped his car down to the last bolt, when they ripped his apartment apart, when they went through his parents' home, when they went to his office, it proved that Koberger had no connection, physical connection whatsoever to the crime, no electronic connection, and no vehicular connection to the crime at all. Their own agent told us it was a 2011 to 2013, and he to this very day still stands by it. What you're going to hear is an interpretation of data that you might not clearly understand, and they're going to paint the picture that data means what they are telling you it means, and in fact, it cannot mean what they said when read through the proper understanding of what you're reading. And I'm going to prove that through this trial. That's how, then when she closes, she needs to pound the cops again and say, look at what they admit. There's no video of my client. They admit there's no pings of my client. I think in that way she could win.
One of the biggest problems I have, like, I sit and think about if I'm a juror, and if I'm not mistaken, they found 4 single sources of blood or male DNA in that house, right? And they didn't test any of them except the one on the sheet. Is that right, or do we know?
They only tested the one with the sheet through IgG, but there's reasons for that.
Okay.
And they're legal reasons and their policy reasons, which which apparently the policies for that are applied to the blood, but the policies not to go into fucking databases where you're prohibited don't apply.
But
To identify,
there
you know
are
what I mean? So it's like
but
it's
there are
bullshit.
policy reasons as to why they wouldn't test the other three.
Yes, there are reasons why the other three aren't tested and why something that's directly connected to potential murder weapon gets that attention. And it's the location and the relevancy, in your opinion. And even if you believe that that blood might be connected to the crime, to run the IgG and do what they did, it may not. There, you don't necessarily have to do that, or you're not. I don't even know if you're allowed to do that. But when you say that the knife came from that sheath, okay, and that there's a DNA sample on that sheath, then they can run that sample through whatever it takes to identify who that may be.
Well,
Now,
and the biggest question I would have is about the other three, right? And I mean, I get the relevance of the one in the sheath, but if you can't conclusively say that that DNA got put in that sheath at the time of the crime, you can't conclusively say that the other three weren't either. So therefore,
that's exactly why.
you should treat all four the same. Either don't
No,
test
well,
the
this is
other, test them
exactly
all.
why, Cletus, this is exactly why all transfer DNA cases, the ones that have been overturned, are because of additional DNA that was not pursued by law enforcement. I mean, this is something a lot of people in the audience don't know. And that's the exact reason why a transfer DNA conviction doesn't stick.
Yeah.
Amanda Knox was transfer DNA. And, I'm going to say this to Donald DeNice. They searched that car, and the results were that there were no DNA samples and no reason to explain it. No reason to explain why there was no DNA samples from the victims. And what you don't realize is hair, skin cells, blood, all kinds of things that could have been put onto your person or onto your clothing. Okay? They dropped a glove, apparently, that had a blood sample on it, if that was part of the crime. My point is that stuff is spread so completely around that you just don't, it just doesn't fall off you that you could then go to your car and just wipe it down with a fucking Armor All or something. They took the car out. You get a blood drop on a fucking carpet, it soaks through to the backside of the carpet. You're not cleaning that out. You just rip the carpet up and look at the pad underneath it.
Yeah.
So their ability to forensically check is insanely fucking deep. And so the likelihood that you could clean all of that up on a car that wasn't taken apart, there's nobody saying, Pierce Brian Koberger removed the carpets and seat in his car and replaced them. Right? I mean, there's no argument as to why there isn't DNA there. And so that should have been known before they arrested the kid. They should have done that beforehand, not after they fucking charged them. And that's Ann's argument in the court. Her simple argument is, you guys that collected all of this evidence that's a lie to get a warrant, that whatever you've produced from that warrant is inadmissible.
Yeah.
And she didn't make a good job of it in court. I'm very disappointed, as you can probably tell. You got to be able to place somebody at the crime. It really irritates me. Find my gun at your neighbor's house and a dead old lady that's been robbed. And you can identify that gun as mine. That don't mean I did the crime. It's circumstantial.
Yeah.
Right? There's ways you got to now, as the police, your job is to explain my connection to the gun and my connection to that particular crime at that house. Through video, through phone, through witnesses, through fingerprints, through something more than just the gun. The gun is a great circumstance to come after me, but it isn't conclusive. Same thing when you find fingerprints. Fingerprints, even like on mine, where I robbed an apartment, where the only way into the apartment was by taking the door hinges out, the pins. My fingerprints were found on the hinges, and they didn't indict me because I was the maintenance man painting that fucking area.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm saying, is a lot of people don't understand how the system works. Was I a guilty guy that got set free? Yeah. That was the whole reason I committed a crime, was to not get caught, right? That's my goal as a criminal, isn't it? So it worked in that case. And Americans need to understand that if they follow the system as the system gives them guardrails and they don't go over the guardrail, it's hard to convict people of it. It's supposed to be hard. I don't know what fucking people think. I mean, if you could just get a pogo stick and go to the moon, right? You wouldn't need Elon Musk. Some things are just, by their very nature, very difficult things to do. And to find people guilty is supposed to be difficult. Unlike when we came, we broke away from Europe because the king could proclaim you're a crook. You could be falsely, they could do anything. They could stick a fucking vegetable in your pocket and say you stole it from the vegetable stand and lock you in a castle's dungeon, right?
Yeah.
We broke from that, and we created a system here that puts the onus on the government's limitations. You have to work within these guardrails to accomplish your task. And it looks to me completely like there's nothing of the sort was used on Kohlberger. The same thing with their Reed case, and the same thing with the Delphi case. They just ignored the guardrails. They'll lie. They'll get right up on the stand and lie. Like I was stunned that the attorney for Karen Reed didn't hand that cop a shovel before he started questioning him. When the cop asked him, "What's that for?" Because I'm going to have you dig your own grave, officer jerk off. And then showed that video was fucked with. And the cop admitted that he knew before he even got on the stand that it was fucked with. And yet, prior to the defense questioning that guy, that same witness was up there telling you that, look, we were nowhere near the back of that car. Based on that video. Can you believe that?
Wow.
Cletus, for real, I'd have brought me a fucking chain gang in and said, what's that for? Because you're joining this before the end of today, motherfucker. You follow me? How the fuck the jury allowed that to get by them, and how he didn't beat that to death in the closing argument is another issue for me. It's like, man, some of these law firms need to hire me to evaluate what they're doing. I'll get innocent fucking and guilty people set free because the system allows for that. Oh man, please.
It's not a bad idea, Sarge. It's not a bad idea.
I'm too fucked up. I don't recommend anybody hire me for any position.
I mean, I wouldn't present you in a fucking courtroom unless I had to, but to build the fucking the situation in the background. Hey, I think the only public position I would put you in would be press secretary for Trump, because I still say that would be a great fucking.
I'd love doing that job, bro. I'd be running people over the fuck. I'd have to get new tires every other week.
I'm telling you, that would be the fucking greatest thing.
Yeah, that would be I would enjoy doing that. I would actually tone down. I wouldn't even use nasty language. That would be such a refined delivery of destruction. And such a great place to do it from.
It would give you a challenge, right?
I would say I can't even thank you for a question that's as stupid as that. How about you in the back? I would just dismiss people hat in hand. I can't believe you actually made it through school. What school did you go? Don't even answer that. I don't want to know, because I don't want to denigrate an institution that may be fantastic. Next. I'd run fucking people over 24/7, bro.
Oh, fuck that.
Oh, they wouldn't stand a chance against old Sarge. Well, you used to be a drug addict. Yeah, and I'm on this podium and you're not. Next. Right.
Yeah, and I'm a fucking criminal that got away with it.
Aren't you a convicted felon? Yeah, I am a convicted felon. As a matter of fact, convicted once out of the 8 felonies I committed. Next. Right, and I had to admit to it. They couldn't convict me. This is the best part about my felony. They literally couldn't convict me because the bank teller would not testify to what the photos were showing. The photos showed a teller handing me money. Tell me where there's a crime in that action.
Yeah.
Name a crime. What do tellers do all day? Hand people money. What do your pictures show? She's handing him money. And she wouldn't testify. Therefore, that evidence didn't really have any weight. But I was so fucked up on drugs. I knew I robbed the bank to go to jail, for fuck's sakes. Right? And then they don't want to keep me there. I was besides myself. What do you mean? What do you mean? I robbed the bank. Nah. Now we got no witnesses. What? You got picked? And then my lawyer grabbed me, literally, threw his hand over my face and dragged me out of there. Yeah.
I confess. What the fuck do you need witnesses
for? My lawyer said, "Are you insane?" He said, "You're beating the fucking. You could be in jail 7 to 15 years." I said, "Are you ignorant? You want me behind you in line with your family? You want someone like me running around free? You fucking twit." I said, "I'm guilty of committing a crime. I committed the crime to get away from the crime." And he just looked at me. He goes, "For real?" I said, "Listen, asshole, I did this." He goes, "You don't got to call me." Well, if you don't bring me back in there and let me fucking get my lumps, then what the fuck? I need a new lawyer. Dude, it was insane. I got the paperwork in the basement. I can show you personally. So you
What's
can confirm
funny is that
story.
lawyer probably tells that story to this day as well.
Dude, the judge was besides himself.
Yeah,
He's like, I can't convict you of a crime that can't be prosecuted.
He's probably on some true crime channel right now going, there was a time where this fucking wackadoodle fucking asshole wouldn't let me fucking get him off of the fucking crime because he wanted to fucking go to jail. What the fuck is up with that?
And I had multiple there was more than one reason. One of them was it was probably the safest place for me to be after I just robbed the fucking guy of his fucking escorts and all of his coke and money in his car. That might be a fucking good place to hide out. Jail. That was number one, right? Number two was I really didn't want to live like that anymore. And jail would have been a nice break from I'd be at 3 square meals. I could read books. I could chill, right? So that was a reason too. But I was besides myself when the judge he picked up the hammer and I screamed, "No! What do you mean? I did it." The fucking prosecutor, I think, shit his pants. And my poor lawyer, I wish I can remember his name. It'll come to me. When he had me in that small conference room, he goes, all right. He goes, nobody can stop you from confessing to the crime. I mean, you were at a bank that was robbed. It was reported. I go, well, there you go. And then the judge was like, I don't know what I can do here. He said, this is unprecedented. He said, there's nothing to prosecute you with. You're admitting to a crime. I go, a crime that we can confirm happened. There was a call right? You guys recovered money on me that had an explosive fucking ink pack in it that never went off. What more do you need? The teller needs to that's fucking bullshit. I said, teller needs to testify.
Well, it's one of those things where it begs the question, did you get off because you didn't allow any opportunity for corruption?
It's absolutely right.
You know what I mean? Like it's fucked up, but I'm seriously sitting here thinking that, like, how the fuck can you not convict somebody that's admitting to a crime that you arrested them for a crime of? That doesn't make any sense.
Here's the other thing too, for people listening to this craziness. That was the first time I was ever completely honest with myself and others. That was why and at that point, I just started to live life differently. Yeah. And I realized that being honest was the simplest path to take. And that's absolutely been true for me. I mean, I've had a very successful life since that day. But
there's nothing more disturbing. I have absolutely fucking learned that there is nothing more disturbing than to a large portion of society than somebody that is completely fucking honest at all times and don't give a fuck.
I don't give a rat's fuck, bro. My buddy, listen, here's a quick story before you go. My buddy's going through a problem with his wife. He's got another woman. He's had that woman for years. They hang out. They do everything together, right? Well, now they're at this thing and they're arguing about a settlement through mediation. And I said, well, get that house. The house is worth $225,000. I said, and don't have her buy you out, you idiot. Buy her out. You give her half of the money for the house. Take off what the repairs are. So let's say half of its house is only worth $200 the way it is. Give her the $100. Then when you sell the house, you get all your money back plus the other $100. The way you're doing it, you think she's just going to come up with $100,000 and get rid of you. The woman ain't going to be able to do that. He goes, yeah, but I'm not going to say her name, but M doesn't want to live in that house. I said, so you mean the broad that broke up your fucking marriage is going to tell you where you could live? Are you fucking kidding me? You got to be out of your fucking mind. How much time and money and years did you spend with that woman and raised your son in that house? Now she's going to tell you can't live there? I said, then you got another idiot woman, just like the idiot woman you cheated on. You picked another idiot to cheat with. Makes no fucking sense, man. I mean, the way real estate goes today is it goes out to bid. So you could list your house around here for $225,000. That shit might sell for $260,000. You know, so it's like you got to be an idiot to take the buyout. A complete idiot. You got to buy that house from her. And I don't know what he's going to do, but it took him 3 years to get a 2% cash back card because he's got a business like me, and you buy a lot of shit. Mm-hmm. Well, a 2% cash back is a non-taxable fucking freebie. And he just got it like last year. I was like, I told you 5 years ago to get this card. Yeah, well, you're just a fucking idiot. Now you think it was your idea. That's why you waited, right? Because you didn't want me to be right, you fucking twit. Because people hate it when I'm right. I can't help myself. All right, Cletus, it's been fun.
All right, see you.
We did our time. everybody in the chat room. We just booted Cletus. I got to him before he could get to his phone. Anyway, it's been awesome. I appreciate people coming out. There's not a damn thing going on today. Just chaos. We live in utter chaos, and it's fucking wonderful. And I got a huge rack of ribs that I'm going to slow roast tomorrow. It's going to be fantastic. So you folks be good or not. Get in trouble or not. Just, enjoy life. You all have a good night.